For us, the Dark Zone and organized PvP, which we call conflict, are the culmination of 2.5 years of learning and evolution since just before the launch of the first game. Being able to think about how we would approach all of those problems from the beginning with a true sequel, and building on all those learnings and all the feedback from the community is giving us the opportunity to do things the way that we really want to do them from the start. Launch for this game, just as it was the first time, is only the beginning.
Everything you see in the Division 2 is what we've always wanted. We love PvP, and so we want to make sure that as many players as possible can experience the kind of PvP they want. You know, you have the Dark Zone. We want more players to go in the Dark Zone and experience the loops, so we made it a little more fair. And then we have the occupied Dark Zones, right? And that's more intense, a little more crazy, and we know people want that too. And then you've got organized PvP, conflict, right? Mm-hmm. And that's for players that just want that experience. They don't want anything crazy to happen. They don't want any PvE in their PvP. It's by no means the end, you know, and there's going to be more things that happen over the course of post-launch and all that jazz. But for launch, it's exactly where we want it to be. I've worked on, you know, PvE games before the Division and the Division 2, and it is a different experience. You know that players are generally going to experience PvE content, especially as it relates to missions, in a linear fashion, and so you can plan things. PvP, much different, right? It's 360 degrees, especially in the Dark Zone. We have to plan for everything. The positions of the Dark Zone this time allow for a different experience altogether. And because of the nature in which we're unlocking the Dark Zones, it's a part of the open world and mission flow. So players can get swept up in just the arc of the game and then experience the Dark Zones separately, but in the proper order.
What we found is having the 3 different zones and each being able to focus on their own playstyle and biome and diversity and narrative and all of that stuff. You still get that same sense of being really surrounded by the story we're trying to tell.
And even though we've made them smaller, honestly, when you're in there, it still feels pretty damn big. It's still really intense.
The threat of players is still always around every turn, so as you're moving around, you're going to kind of be brushing elbows with them a little bit more, and that threat of whether or not PvP is going to happen is going to be a little more ever present.
And this time around, PvP is a pillar. It's a pillar from the get-go.
We knew that we wanted to integrate it from the ground up this time around and make it an integral part of the experience overall. We want players to come to the Division for PvP as much as they do for PvE.
We have a fantastic level design and art staff here at Redstorm, and now we can build custom maps. We didn't get to do that the first time, so letting them flex a little bit and show off and show people just, okay, this is how PvP is really supposed to be in the Division.
Being able to build custom maps that are dedicated to the PvP experience, and we know that our sightlines for objectives and domination are being managed and carefully monitored by the level designers. We're making sure that everything about the PvP gameplay that we want is part of the level design from the ground up, which is something we're really excited about.
Hello everyone, welcome to the special report live stream about the Dark Zones and PvP in the Division 2. You just saw Tony and Terry from Redstorm. We're going to talk to them later on, so stick around for that. My name is Petter. And I just want to make sure that we're going to talk about Darkzones and PvP. We're going to have live gameplay all through this this stream. But just remember that the build that we are using is still in development. There might be some bugs. There might be other things not working 100%. And the balance is not really there yet either, just so you know. But without further ado, let's introduce our very special guests here today. You guys are kind of Twitch veterans now, though. You've been around for a while. You've been here before.
It's always new and it's always nerve-wracking. So,
it is.
But just for the introduction, my name is Gene Gertie. I'm the creative director on the Division 2.
My name is Matthias Karlsson, game director on the game.
The game, the Division.
The game, the Division 2. The game.
The game.
The game.
You're right, Matt.
Just to reiterate what you were saying in the introduction, I mean, today we're focusing on Darkzone and PvP. Yeah. This is really Red Storm's baby. They're going to jump in on the second half of the stream. What you're seeing today is live gameplay with people in the studio here who are going to be playing. And the charm of live gameplay is that we don't know what's going to happen.
Anything could happen at this point.
And it's very important to keep in mind, this is not the final build. We're a long way off.
Please keep that
it's almost more fun if it's not perfect.
It is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so, too. Anyway, let's start off, because while there will be veterans, a lot of veterans watching the stream right now, there probably also be new people who might have heard the term dark zone before, but I just want to, before we kind of go into the details, what is a dark zone?
So, I mean, the Division is a monstrously big game. And when we were thinking about the first game, there was this special place in our hearts and within the map that we wanted to create a social experiment for people to go in and play something that was really different from every other experience out there. And we coined it the Dark Zone. Now, in terms of the lore, this was in Midtown Manhattan. It was in the middle of the map. It was a long stretch of land, which was meant to be the epicenter of where the government tried to control the pandemic, the virus being let loose. Obviously, that didn't happen so well, but the lore makes it that the best stuff in the game was there. There was some incredible loot to get there, but you had to extract it. And it was also a place where the Shade Network wasn't so great. So the social experiment was, okay, if the cameras aren't on you, who are you? Are you that agent, that Division agent who's there to protect people, to stand up for what's good? Or are you Terry Spears, who's going to shoot you in the back? I mean, that was the question asked there. And to be honest, I'm notoriously a casual player of the Division, a casual player of games in general. But some of the best experiences that I ever had playing the game were going into the Dark Zone and exploring and finding just incredible stuff and friendships, pairing up with somebody who would accompany me. And then, you do a landmark together. You go to an extraction together. You like that person. So it was almost like...
And then you shoot them in the back? Or...
Nah, not me. Not me. I'm not that good, man. My Twitch gaming skills died off a few decades ago. But it was really a location where you found people that you wanted to play with, and that you liked their style, you liked their build, you had a rapport, and that you could take outside of the Dark Zone too. So, this was 3 years ago. We launched 3 years ago. We've been listening to the community. We've been tweaking the Dark Zone, improving it, and it needed a lot of improvements. This is a live experiment. Yeah. And today we're ready to go live with the newest version of the Dark Zone for the Division 2.
Which leads us into the Division 2. So we've already announced last week, which was a scary moment, that there will be 3 Dark Zones in the Division 2 compared to the first one. In the first one, we had this big area in the middle of the map, kind of splitting the map in two, but now we have the 3 different Dark Zones spread around. So what was the creative idea? What was the concept behind having 3 Dark Zones in the Division 2?
Do you want to jump on this?
You want to jump on that?
Or do you want me to
pounce like a little rabbit on this one? There's a multitude of reasons, to be honest. I think first of all, not dividing the map with this wedge down the middle was a thing we saw as a big benefit. So you get this massive contiguous play space of PvE only open world, with Dark Zone, east, west, and south kind of hugging the edges, so to say, which also means that we can make these Dark Zones be in very different areas. Like they're very contrasting environments in terms of just their visuals, but also how open they are. You will see in the footage that Dark Zone West, which is in part of DC called Georgetown, narrow streets, smaller low buildings, canal, is a very different place from the wide open grand areas around Union Station in East, right? But that also means it plays different. And could talk at length about that, but just having long open sightlines versus narrow winding streets is a very different experience and very different approach for you alone or with a group.
Right. So I think the best way we need to jump into the gameplay. We have Frederick and Astrid here in the studio and a bunch of other people in the building that will be playing live, and we're going to start out actually in Dark Zone South. But there's one other difference to be made, is to try to make the Dark Zone, they have their own narrative arc now in a different way than the Dark Zone had in the first game. So how do you build kind of the Dark Zone into the narrative?
So again, we're gonna break the fourth wall a little bit and talk to you about game development as well, because when you go into a project like this, there's a whole bunch of different sources and inspirations and things that you want to achieve, and fundamentally, I think it's no secret that we're both passionate about design and gameplay and structure, but narrative and the context and the world is so important. It is that decision that you're going to take to jump into these locations or not. So the Dark Zone conceptually is a place, a forbidden place. It's pushing open those gates and going into this location that is unknown, that feels dangerous, that feels like you're stepping into a forbidden zone. And we wanted to keep that. But we also wanted to lean into what Matthias was saying, which was these unique architectural and city-wise structural differences that we have within this one-to-one recreation of Washington, D.C. So, once we had the locations, once we decided, okay, for these reasons, we're going to create 3 different Dark Zones, then you can look at, okay, but what sort of stories can we construct around this landmark? The landmark being Union Station in Dark Zone East, for example. What could happen there? What could happen in this area in Dark Zone South, next to the wharf, the coastline of the river? What sort of stories could we tell that match the architecture that we're featuring? Lots of interiors, these big government buildings. If you've ever walked around DC, this is a city that is built to exude the power of government, to tell you, okay, this is a place of power. And there's nowhere that states that clearer than Dark Zone South.
Right.
And then in the West, this is Georgetown. Georgetown, if you've ever seen pictures, is possibly, apart from the nature biomes that we have, the nature environments that we have, it's possibly the most different location in any Division game. Go ahead, please. Cut me off. Do you know who I am? Jeez.
Oh, I'm not supposed to bump the table.
No, but
typical.
You're crossing all the lines, man.
Community.
So
people.
As I was saying, it's if I'm talking too much, just tell me.
No. I just wanted to point out to people that we will be actually showing gameplay from Georgetown later on, so you'll actually get to see what Junior is talking about.
Perfect.
That's what I was.
And that's pretty much the first time we show that, apart from the mixer stream.
Exactly.
But Georgetown, much lower buildings. It's almost European feel. Very different buildings. So every building feels very different. Tight corners, canals. It has a very European feel to it. So imagine a Dark Zone covered in this mysterious yellow powder, DC-62, and exploring that. And narrative is super important. And we know that we have a type of player like me who is a little bit intimidated by the Dark Zone.
I'm just a tiny
just a
tiny bit intimidated by this.
tiny bit intimidated. But there are stories, there's gameplay, there's landmarks, there's things to discover lore-wise, collectible-wise, and we have introduction missions where we're going to send you into each of the dark zones sequentially. You hit a level cap, you get an introduction mission. They're not mandatory. You don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. It's an activity that's always going to be there for you, though.
Yeah.
And those introduction missions introduce you to what created those dark zones, what makes them unique, what makes them stand out. I could tell you the stories, but I want to keep that for players to discover as well.
Yeah, but and they're also a great introduction to kind of the key ingredients: extraction, acquiring gear that you need to get out of the darkzone through extraction. So it's a nice soft ramp up to going in to a darkzone that is then populated by other players. I'm trying to say.
That's the thing.
So-
Sorry.
No.
Please.
Julian, after
Please.
you.
After you. No, please.
After you. I was just going to say, we from the gameplay that we're showing right now, we're not doing the introductory missions. We just jumped straight into Darkzone South.
Okay.
And now, Julian, go on.
No, I was going to say, I got so carried away because really what I love, I don't particularly love being on camera and doing streams and stuff like that, but what I do
But
love...
you make it look so good.
Thank you. Note that down for his performance review. No, but what I do love is talking passionately about the game. And here I forgot completely to say that it was an atypical PvP, PvE, PvP space, which, we're assuming people know, but not everybody knows that. So that's where the intimidation comes too. It's not only that there are enemies that are super tough in the dark zone, it's also other players. And for me, the most intimidating part has always been other players. Mm-hmm. And one of our focuses on this game, Division 2, has been how can we make the dark zone into a fairer place, a fairer playing field, a deeper playing field as well. And we've got a lot of design elements and rules and loops there that really are conducive to guiding players who are maybe a little bit intimidated, but want that risk-reward challenge, want that intensity into the dark zone, which is, a fair space of the map when you think about it. So dedicating all of that space only to, the most hardcore of the hardcore wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. But we have something for them too.
We have something for them as well. Let's take a look at the gameplay here, because for the loop that you were talking about, so there's been changes made to the rogue mechanics. We should maybe say that the rogue kind of concept has expanded a little bit in the Division 2. So I'm not sure where you are now, but if you could go rogue at some point, I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
It looks that we're looking at this quite tiny screen.
They are actually on the rogue loop already. They have gone rogue. They've started to do the rogue activities. We're seeing a terminal here. So tell us a little about the new rogue. What are they actually doing?
Well, right here, what you saw there, that they were interacting with a shade terminal in the dark zone, but it needs a little bit of setup. So first of all, for people who don't know at all, rogue was, getting a skull above your head. This is in the original, when we released the Division 1, saying this player has killed another player, and it's now, fair game to take this player out without consequence, but that player stands to lose a lot potentially, right? So, of course, that is still in the Division 2, where you can choose to go rogue, take another player, and then keep escalating that all the way up to triggering a manhunt. And we wanted to extend that experience towards something a little less intimidating maybe than engaging with another player in full-on PvP, where things like opportunism, greed,
selfishness.
Yeah, you could say even selfishness can also be, the entry point into the rogue loop. So that's what we call rogue action. So things like deciding to take an entire supply drop for yourself instead of sharing it will flag you rogue and set you on into this little journey, which is what they're doing here, I think. Yes.
So they've actually already gone through the whole thing. They've unlocked the Thieves' End, which we'll touch upon in a couple of minutes. But
right. So
as we said, anything can happen. So they've been playing and we've been talking. So,
For sure.
but yeah. So in the middle of the rogue loop, they're doing these. They're grabbing the terminals, grabbing chests.
Yes. So from here on, of course, they can continue to escalate this into actually killing other players and enter that experience. But it's also what this does is it enables players who maybe want to completely try to avoid engagement with other players to have a full loop. So once you enter this state, they're going to these terminals and they're basically triangulating the location of a number of hidden, what we call thieves' dens. It's almost like a rogue safe house that you will be able to then get to if you manage to survive. For some reward, there's going to be a vendor in there selling some unique stuff. And it also marks the end of that loop. So,
And
I think they're actually in the thieves' den.
and this thieves
right now.
den is very different from the Shade safe house that's also located
Right.
in the Dark Zone. So
You can find these in sewers. You can find them in.
different entry points. It's always going to be a surprise because you have to triangulate their location. So we don't want everybody sort of aiming for the same location every time. So there's a randomization there. So we're using different locations within the map. Manhole covers, for example, entryways, doors, as potentially the entrance into the thieves' den.
and also exiting, like little tricks to make sure that, okay, but you might think that like what stops other players from just waiting outside the door. On exit, you will emerge somewhere else.
Yeah. So one of the things we didn't talk about, and I know that people are curious about, the VoIP rules. So we're getting a lot of questions on those.
Yeah.
But what I would love is for you to ask the Red Storm team about that, so it clears it up for everybody.
Yeah, there's
a little bit later.
been a whole bunch of questions exactly what we're doing with VoIP. So
Yep,
I'm
and
going to bug Red Storm about it.
and
as
it's
well.
complex. But the idea
Very
there
complex.
is that we want to reduce the toxicity. Again, it's this single-minded nature of trying to make the Dark Zone a fairer, more fun place to be in, despite the added intensity of being in a location where anything can happen. It's a PvP-enabled space. But we're also going to normalize the regular Dark Zones. And again, normalization, don't be scared of it. Red Storm's going to jump in and explain exactly what they have in mind. Your build still matters. Your build choices still matter. What you're using, your equipment, your gear still matters. It just levels the playing field for everybody. So it makes it more skill focused than anything else.
Yeah.
Still not a good idea for me to engage in PvP, but it creates that level playing field.
But actually, that brings up a good question compared to, or also related to kind of what they're doing right now.
Mhm.
We're talking about being scared of going into the Dark Zone. I mean, our viewers have been making fun of me for a long time for mainly doing PvE because
Okay.
I'm scared. What does this bring for a PvE player? Because I felt that the first time I played this build and I was running around doing these rogue actions, and I knew there were other employees out there hunting for it. I felt as PvP player, this is something that I want to do. This is something that I want to experience. I can see myself going into the Dark Zone much more now than I could in the first game because I'm scared. And
Well, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. It's, I mean, like any well-crafted experience, there's this tapestry of features and rule set and design decision that create that result, right? So I think there are many things contributing to why it's a more PvE-only friendly experience. One of them being what I just described with that rogue loop, where you can get the thrill of other players being present, almost seeing them like the ultimate enemies of the Dark Zone, but you don't have to engage with them to get that enjoyment. And other things like uncontaminated loot, which I think is
I was
very
just
very
about
very,
that, the
very important
rewards you
ingredient.
get.
Yeah, where really the I would say the most distilled moment of tension and excitement in the Dark Zone is when you found something that you really really want, and you have to extract it. Shooting that flare, you're visible to everyone. People know there's an extraction going on. I have to be in this place for this amount of time to successfully get my stuff. We don't want to screw with that. So that's of course still in the game. I'll get to that in a little bit.
yeah, I'm not sure
But-
if they're heading to an
yeah.
extraction or what's actually going on. They're not.
They're not.
So
but
far, live
we'll-
gameplay,
I'm sure
everybody.
we'll see it in a bit. But what we've done is that we've added loot into the Dark Zone that goes direct to inventory.
Mhm.
And this is also to make it a slightly more predictably rewarding experience for the time that you invest.
Mhm.
But it also means that you don't necessarily have to expose yourself through an extraction, which is very exposing, right, to other
Right.
players.
Yeah.
But the contaminated loot, however, of course,
I was
yeah.
about to say the flip side
Yeah.
of having access to non-contaminated loot is that the contaminated loot that you get, we're going to strive to make that even more relevant to you.
Right.
So behind the scenes, what we do is that yellow bag, once you get one, you don't know what's in there. You have to extract it to know what it's going to be. And we can predictably roll behind the scenes something that's going to be more useful for you. So that's a huge deal. So that means that when you see a yellow bag, when you see some piece of contaminated loot, that's going to be worth extracting. So that creates that, real desire to, okay, this is going to be predictably better than anything else.
Right. But I can still feel, because that's a fear now going in. I only have my contaminated loot, but now I always get rewarded anyway, in a sense.
Yeah.
As long as I pulled something off inside the
Yeah, your time is always going to be rewarded.
Yep.
You're always going to get a non-contaminated loot
Right.
for playing in the DZ.
All right, so I'm being told we're actually going to jump over to Dark Zone West in a minute, but first we're going to just take a short break. We're going to run the Dark Zone trailer for you while we set up Dark Zone West. And
So we're not taking a break. We're showing a trailer.
we're
and
showing a trailer.
when we
We're
come back.
We're taking a break.
All right.
Julian gets to take a break,
All right. Thank you.
and we'll be back very, very soon.
Cool.
After attempts to eradicate the virus failed, quarantined areas quickly formed and an insufficiently tested chemical was deployed, DC-62. The results were devastating. DC-62 proved to be just as lethal and left a path of desolation across concentrated areas of the city. Darkzone, the Division's intense mix of PvP and PvE, is returning. The Darkzone is a unique environment filled with rewards, where anything can happen and no one can be trusted. Agents will now be able to access 3 different Dark Zones, each with its own distinct environment, landmarks, and challenges, and with up to 12 players sharing the same zone. The 3 different Dark Zones host a wide variety of environments and gameplay, providing players with a renewed experience and different challenges every time they play. The walled-off Dark Zones have remained untouched by scavengers, leaving these areas filled with high-level equipment. But some of these items are toxic and will need to be extracted before they can be used. Agents can obtain equipment by clearing landmarks, taking down enemy factions, or securing supply drops, but also by embracing new ways to play as they turn against other agents. This is classified as going rogue. Rogue agents can now lockpick supply crates, steal other agents' contaminated gear before extraction, and hack SHD terminals to obtain valuable resources. But some still prefer a more radical approach, at the risk of becoming a target of their own. There are now 3 different rogue statuses that present players with a variety of ways to combat other agents in the Dark Zones, whenever they choose. Dark Zones are an experience where players need to balance risk with reward. They are normalized environments where all players have the chance to succeed. Automated turrets guard the entry points and protect newcomers from predatory rogue agents and enemies. This gives players the freedom to engage in their very own playstyle without being overpowered by veteran agents. While Dark Zones remain an accessible challenge, Occupied Dark Zones, our most brutal version of the Dark Zone, will also be available at launch. With no rules to keep anyone safe and higher rewards, this will be a true contest for survival of the fittest. Conflict, our organized PvP experience for The Division 2, will also be available at launch. Conflict modes pitch a team of 4 SHD agents against a team of 4 rogue agents across domination and skirmish game modes in 3 new maps located outside of the main story. These modes feature their own progression system, granting rewards that players can bring back in the main open world of The Division 2. In domination, teams battle for control of 3 capture zones. Stay in the zone with your team, or perform special actions to keep scoring and deny the zone to the opposing team, using your skills and agent toolbox wisely. In skirmish, each team aims at reducing the opposing team reinforcement to 0. This mode supports intense and highly tactical engagements where communication is the key to victory when aiming for the top of the leaderboard. The Division 2's Conflict and Darkzones experience will continue to evolve as part of our commitment to post-launch, and players can look forward to new areas and new modes in the coming months. You will decide how you will want to achieve your mission, as a team or standing alone. Agents, welcome to The Division 2.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. We've now done our little game development magic in the background, moved everybody from Darkzone South to Darkzone West. We're going to jump into that real quick. I just want to point out as well that after we're done here, after we've talked to you guys and we called up Red Storm, then we're going to do some live gameplay for another hour. So stick around. Me and Hamish are going to be playing some Darkzone and PvP.
Fantastic.
So just
Where
look
about?
teaser. Huh?
Which Dark Zone?
I do not know yet.
Okay.
One of the Dark Zones to be decided. Speaking of, we talked about going rogue now, and as you said in the first game, kind of going rogue entails everything. It entails cutting the rope, for example, and it entails killing other players. And of course, as implied by our discussions, that's still something you can do in the Dark Zone,
Of course.
or the Dark Zones, obviously. So how does that work in the Division 2? Like you go rogue, you steal stuff, and then you go disavowed.
Yeah, so I think I just want to make it really clear that don't think about this as different, disconnected experiences.
No.
It's really about one long
A
gradient
spectrum,
where you chose where to come in and how far to go. So we already covered the greed stealing part of going rogue, but disavowed is what we call the act of actually killing another player now. So that's when you get flagged in a different way. It's clear to everyone like this player's now taken a life.
Yep.
And
I'm really hoping on the gameplay here that they will find another team and hunt them down,
they should.
or get wrecked. I don't mind either way. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but and then of course that is, if you want to, the beginning of a journey all the way up to triggering Manhunt,
Right.
Where Golden Skull, that's not going to time out, right? So this very similar to the first game. Clearing Manhunt status is a matter of going to these terminals, right? But what we added now in Division 2 is the ability to, once you get to one, because you're going to have 3 active, choose to elevate your status even further, reducing your way out, so to say, to now 2. And then you can do it again and have 1 left, which is really about giving players more tools who like that experience to kind of tailor it to how much risk reward do I want? How much do I think we can handle? Or alone too, if you're so inclined.
And what we're seeing here, I mean, we're just by a canal.
Let's
One of
take
the
a look at
canals
the
of the Dark Zone, and you'll notice that Georgetown, Dark Zone West, is the location where, and I'm not giving away too much, but this is where the DC-62, the yellow powder, was sprayed to try and contain the virus, to try and neutralize the effects of the virus. Didn't work out. Within the context of what was happening at the time, it turned out that this was ultra toxic. So you're going in, this is a dangerous place. There's lots and lots of stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. There are so many things to discover here. And as you can see, it looks so different from the rest of the map.
This is such a serene scene as well until
Yeah.
you start looking at the details. That's when it can agree.
Yeah. The bodies in the water, that type of thing. But we're not here to do
We're not here to talk
sightseeing.
about- yeah, we're not here to talk
either.
about death fish
I mean, if you can go manhunt, that'd be great because it is a loop that is super risk reward focused, and we do know that a lot of players love that loop. So this allows them to keep chaining those timers and to get as much from it as possible.
Sorry?
No.
I thought you were going to say something.
Just so polite.
Excuse me.
Connected though to the Dark Zone experience and the Dark Zone progression are new. Speaking of risk rewards,
Yeah.
and gaining something
Yeah.
that you might
Yeah.
actually lose later on, the Dark Zone perks.
Yep. Now the Dark Zone perks, something that I think is awesome, and you're going to get perks based on your levels, which is what we're calling ranks for the Division 2. And we have 50 levels. Straight away, you're going to get some great perks. I think it's level 1, you get to carry 1 extra item for extraction. But then it goes to things that are so cool, like lowering the extraction timer. So
That's
these things,
huge. That's
you're
huge.
not going to want to lose these perks. So you're going to want to defend your Dark Zone level as much as possible. So again, it's little things like this that increase the depth of what we're proposing to all types of players in the Dark Zone. And that extends to one of the things that I know that Terry is so passionate about, which are the occupied Dark Zones.
Right.
Matthias, do you want to take us through what occupied Dark Zones are?
And we're gonna wrap everything up because we're kinda running out of time because we're really good at talking.
All right.
But we're gonna tease because there is something for you were talking about the people who really enjoys the manhunt loops.
Yep.
There usually are very hardcore players.
Yeah.
We do have something special planned for them as well.
Yeah, and it's really, we, the dev team, we're very excited about the original, very raw, vanilla Dark Zone that we launched with.
Friendly fire.
And we know that there's a sizable part of the Division community that love that experience. So this is yet another thing that we can do, given the fact that we have more than one. We have 3 Dark Zones. So any given time in endgame, one of them will be what we call occupied. And what that means is really that there's always going to be a place for players to go and have that original experience, meaning no normalization, friendly fire is always on, and risk reward is really turned to 11. So it's the place, if you like that experience of complete ambiguity, but also it's not just my player skill alone, it's really also my build versus yours. That's the place to go. And the cool thing with 3 is that this will rotate on a certain schedule. So it's not like, oh, if I want to play occupied, I'm stuck with playing only South, for example. Like it will change so that you really get to experience all 3, no matter what is your primary preference.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And for me personally, staying the hell out of that.
Yeah.
That's just me. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Been fantastic. We could obviously talk about the Dark Zone for a long time, but we need to cut it. I think our producers back there are going crazy from talking.
Yeah.
So we're gonna leave it there. But again, thank you very much. I hope to see you guys back on State of the Game. That is coming back. State of the Game is coming back. Don't worry about it. And I'll drag these guys in.
Cool.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
So we're not actually going to take a break. So during the alpha, we had an alpha forum for the players who were playing that under NDA and everything, as you probably know. But we took the opportunity to start a thread there where people could ask questions about things like server infrastructure and anti-cheat. So we put together a short video with a couple of those questions. So take a look at that, and then after that, we will be back with Redstorm to talk about PvP. So we will see you then.
Hi, My name is Jan Harrison. I'm a senior online infrastructure engineer with the division, and I do back-end and infrastructure.
Hi, my name is Duran Fatih Güngör, and I work as a senior gameplay programmer on the Division 2.
Okay, well, we didn't intend to, but we definitely won't.
So easy anti-cheat is basically our first line of defense, I would say, and it prevents the player from tampering with memory or the executable or the data itself. We moved on, and now it's more of an online cheat detection tool so that we can act on it instantly.
So I wouldn't say we rely on the cloud. We use the cloud to bolster what we already have. So we work with a hardware provider who gives us physical machines, very powerful physical machines. And then on top of that, we add the scalability of the cloud. So we try and get best of both worlds. So you get the really good performance of the bare metal, but you also get the expandability of the cloud.
Yes, it's always been proactive. We had the banhammers every week, and we have the offline data and the analyzers that give the reports who used what cheat tools. And we've been without mercy, and coupled with our new cheat measures, it should be a much more fair ground.
So because of our scalable infrastructure, hopefully that would not happen. We have enough capacity in each region to be able to accommodate like almost the entire player base of Division 2 that we expect. But if you have a friend who is in US West and you're in Asia, then obviously one of you is going to have to make a compromise, and we will decide that for you.
We're gonna be transparent with the tick rates when the game releases, and right now we are testing on target hardware for the servers, so we are figuring things out. There can be like slight changes. We have done a lot of optimizations on the server side as well to support all the player simulation and everything around it. So we're gonna communicate that.
So there's going to be dedicated server infrastructure. Everyone will connect to a server, and the server will handle a lot of things, especially artificial intelligence and positioning in the game. It's the server that's authoritative.
We have addressed a lot of the player replication issues from the first game, the infamous chicken dance and the running in place bug. And this is all thanks to all the improvements and fixes that we did in the locomotion system and new animations and new animation systems.
Yes, we're planning on having coverage in South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Oceania, around 13 data center locations in total.
You can instead donate to charity, because if you use cheat tools, you're gonna be banned for sure. So.
Welcome back to the special report for Darkzones and PvP. I'm supposed to have the guys from Red Storm in my ear. Are they? Hello?
Hello.
Whoa.
Hello. Hello.
Whoa. That was louder than I expected. How are you doing? Are we going to
Very
get you
good.
on
How are
screen?
you?
Are we going to get... Oh, there we go. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Nice to see you, buddy.
So for, we always do this, but for the people who've never met you guys before, can you please introduce yourselves? Is there a lag on this?
Hang on.
Oh,
I'm pausing.
live TV, everybody.
We got it.
We got it. All right. So, can you introduce yourself, guys?
Sure. Should I go again?
Do it.
All right. My name's Terry Spear. I'm the creative director here at Redstorm.
And I'm Keith Evans. I'm the lead game designer here at Redstorm.
So we were talking briefly before with Julian and Matthias about your involvement in the Darkzone and PvP, which is extensive. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing on the game itself?
Sure. As the creative director, I helped assign the vision. I work with Julian and Matthias and the other directors to make sure it all goes into a place that we're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I work with our game design team here and the level designers and just kind of getting all the details of what's going to go into the new game and then working hand in hand with Massive.
I really love how I have you guys on the screen here. Can we just
I know.
Can we just take a second to just appreciate the fact that we have you on the wall?
I wish we were there with
You have
you.
no
Yeah.
idea. You have no idea how much time Ella and Hamish put into making that work. So anyway, I just want to give them some credit here on the stream.
It's like
So
we
you
can
see them.
almost hug you.
They can almost.
almost.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. Terry hugs are nice. Anyway, let's move on. So you guys have been very, very involved, of course, with the PvP in the Division 1 as well. But when you sat down for the first time and kind of, okay, what's our philosophy? What's our goals moving for PvP in the Division 2? What was your first thoughts?
Good question. The first thought was fairness. I'd say that probably the second thought that came out right after that was inclusion. We want more people to play PvP in the Division 2.
Yeah, I think we made a lot of strides, throughout post-launch in the first game, taking a lot of those learnings and really pushing fairness and a place for everyone to PvP.
So we're actually going to jump in. We're going to have we have live gameplay running in the background here, actually. We're going to see if we can jump in and just put that on screen while people are shooting each other in the face. They have a problem. They'll fix it. We'll just keep talking. So fairness, that's another topic that we discussed with Julian and Matthias before. And one big thing there, one of the pillars is normalization. So we had it, or we have it in the first game, in Last Stand, and in the skirmish PvP modes. But what is exactly normalization, and how do you approach it in the Division 2?
Yeah, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
Normalization was it was very important for us with fairness and inclusion as two of the big pillars for PvP, and it was something we knew we needed to include because although we're an RPG, we also want players to be able to participate in gun battles, that they feel are fair. And when you have a game with such stat diversity like we do, it was sort of a
it's a super important layer. But I think what you pointed out, right? We had the concept of normalization in the first game, but that's the key thing. Is normalization is just an idea, and you can apply it in all sorts of different ways. So we've completely redone our normalization system from the first game to work with all the improvements to the RPG that are in the Division 2.
Yep. Let's not go deeper into that at the moment, but we can say that it applies to everything. It applies not only to the organized PvP modes, but it also outside of the occupied dark zones applied to the dark zone as well.
And that was super cool for us to be able to have the occupied dark zones, a place where we can say, in contrast to the normal dark zones and organized PvP, okay, here you go. You have your full statistical advantage that you've spent a lot of time working on. Go have fun together. Go play with each other. Shoot each other.
Yeah, and then that core idea of normalization this time is, we're not just pushing everyone to the exact same power level. We're taking your build and making it still really matter, but we're kind of getting rid of those really high peaks of damage output and those really high sustainability builds and pulling everyone a little bit more in focus.
I think it's important to note too that there are a lot of details to this normalization plan that we haven't discussed yet, but just imagine that if we're setting a bar for normalization, if you're under that bar, we help you move up to the bar. And if you're over that bar, players that are over that normalization standards position, you're going to receive some statistical bonuses for being over. And they're not huge advantages, but they are in fact advantages.
And they make your time and your build and your choices still matter, right? Still be felt.
Yeah, and I think one thing I think you should talk about, Keith, is the fact that this normalization allows us to keep PvP and PvE separate.
Yeah, I think that's one of the core things. Is normalization isn't just changing the stats blanketly on your gear. It's going in and doing talent overrides just for normalized play, or skill adjustments just for normalized play, with the idea of keeping PvP in balance but never affecting the PvE game. We want to give you all that power in PvE.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, so I'm sorry, we're having, this live gameplay thing I talked about before. One of the computers crashed. But they're bringing it back. They're bringing it back. LS, kind of calm down. Everything is okay.
Thanks, Obama.
You guys are still there, so I'm happy with that. So one thing that I'm kind of bringing in like topics that we talked about before, which we thought we should talk to Redstorm about these things, and one of them is the VoIP questions people have been having, because they announced that last week we were discussing the changes being made to VoIP, and can you just explain a little bit what we're doing in that field? The thing is that I realized I have this on the table just now.
Tape?
So it's tape, yeah. So I got all confused. You go.
So for VoIP, actually, we're very engaged in the conversation right now. We know there's an active discussion in the community. We're paying attention to all those conversations. It's wonderful, in fact, to be able to have the conversations now. We'd like people to play it in the beta and what we have in place, and really get their hands on it and feel it. And then once that happens, we're very open to making changes and adjustments so the community is happy. The point is, okay, how can we help curb some of that toxicity that we had in the original game?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like what you said before. It's about the inclusiveness of the experience and getting more people to come in, giving you all the tools of the last game, and stripping out some of the toxicity.
Yeah, we're very aware that there's a lot of great relationships that happen in the Dark Zone, especially that ad hoc stuff. You didn't expect to meet a person, and then you got some great teamwork. We don't want to take that away at all. That's part of the very unique nature of the Dark Zone that all of us identify as very important. Yeah. But we also want to try and steer our players away from the feeling that it's a bully community, and how can we help people feel more comfortable, without taking away some of the magic. So it's an iterative process. Like always, we're going to pay attention to how the community feels and how we feel, and move from there.
Right. So I see the gameplay computer from here. It's up and running. Frederick is back in the match, I believe. I just want to point out that I got a weird echo there. The PvP organized PvP modes in the Division 2 are 4 versus 4. I don't think we have everyone in the match, so if you don't see all the names there, that's because technical reasons. So, but it's 4v4.
Flat TV, baby.
That's right.
Let's talk though about the two different modes that the game is launching with. It's skirmish, we know, slightly from the first game, and of course domination. But let's talk about skirmish first. It's a classic making its return, but there's been tweaks to the formula.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been. I think maybe skirmish by name is about the only thing we took. The design team and Keith worked hard to sort of reimagine what skirmish was.
Yeah, and there were a couple goals that we had in mind, right? And the main one is we wanted to make it a more team-based tactical experience, but still obviously at its core, team deathmatch. So this time, instead of just trying to rack up kills as fast as possible, you have a set number of respawns, and you're trying to deplete the other team's respawns. And just that little mental shift makes you hang back, fight more as a team, makes you care more about each death. And it allowed us to do something that I think is really exciting, which is once the respawns are depleted, it kicks you into a team elimination phase. And it has this feeling of you're never completely out of the fight, right? You might be all the way down into the elimination phase. It's just you and one buddy. And, if you can stage a comeback from that point and deplete all the other team's respawns, get those final eliminations and still win. It just feels a lot more like we have exciting comebacks and really tactical team-based play.
Yeah, you're not just moving towards a frag count.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of work into the spectator cam. The team crushed it, and there's a real fun element to getting into that sort of elimination mode where you get to watch your teammates and see them really shine
and see them rally.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing we had in Last Stand, for example, in the first games are the boosts that are available to you scattered throughout the map. Can you tell us a little bit about those and how they work?
Yeah, go for it, Keith.
Yeah, so the idea is across the whole conflict, which is kind of the platform for these PvP game modes, we want to have some connecting ideas, and one of those are the boosts. So in all these modes, you'll have these passive perks that can come online that you can go claim as an objective for your team, and you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of it, but it's going to give you some little advantage. In domination, it might increase your score count. In team deathmatch, it might give you extra armor for a little bit across your whole team. And it's just these little ways to augment the fight and make it, honestly, just kind of ups the excitement level. You can be, maybe behind by a little bit, get one of these boosts and pull yourself back into the fight.
They're tertiary objectives. It's meant to just supplement the main gameplay loops that are happening, but they're on the sides. You know, you might have an active boost. You can pick it up and help your team.
So we're actually jumping over right now to the second organized PvP mode that will be available at launch of the Division 2, Domination. So can you tell us a little bit about that as we get the match up and running?
You bet. Dom. I mean, I personally love Domination.
Is that what we call it, Dom?
Well, I mean, come on.
I'm just making sure I'm down with the lingo.
Yeah, you're down with the lingo. The goal with Conflict as a PvP destination was to give players modes that they're very comfortable with, modes that don't take a lot of overhead understanding. Yeah. And Dom, as a game mode where you have to capture objectives, creates that just little nugget of tactics. You get to play some defense, and it was something we all wanted to include.
Yeah, and I think it was also a mode that we could do a cool division take on, right? So our capture points aren't just there in the match. You actually, see them airdrop into the space at the very beginning. You have this little period where the objectives aren't active. Maybe you fight over B for just, 15, 20 seconds and try to clear out the other team.
Sorry, I saw Terry was
Terry is
there's too much liquid in that mug, Terry. It's dangerous for you, obviously.
Went the wrong spot. I was trying to get him to mute my mic so I didn't cough in everyone's ear.
All right, then I'll try to ask Keith instead. So one thing we really didn't touch on before is one big endgame feature in the Division 2, of course, being the specializations and how they come into play in PvP. So, for example, how you get specialization ammo, etc. For
So the specializations are obviously it's a huge new part of the whole PvP or RPG progression that comes in at endgame. And we know they're super powerful. They're meant to be really powerful. And we didn't want to take those away from you in PvP. We want to give you moments to use them. But we've changed the way that you get that special ammo and made it kind of a real tactical component that's integrated straight into the Conflict game mode.
We didn't want people just to come in with their specs and just crush. We didn't want PvP to be just about, okay, what's the best specialization weapon? I'm just going to use that the whole time.
Yeah. So you'll start the match. You'll have your specialization weapon on your back once you're at level 30. You can even see what specializations are equipped on the opposing team and on your team up at the top of the screen. So you can kind of plan what might happen in the battle. But you're only going to get that specialization ammo a few key times in the match. And it will actually airdrop in like a supply drop from the Darkzone. And both teams can fight over control of that. The winning team gets a little bit of specialization ammo for their whole squad. But the really interesting part is if you can get in there and wipe out the other team, they drop any specialization ammo they had, and your team can try to take it back, kind of swing the fight.
One thing you also had the opportunity to do when you sat down and started working on the PvP for the second game was, if we look at the first game, if we look at Skirmish, those maps are actually taken from parts of the world. But here you had a chance to start from scratch. You were able to build custom map from the ground up.
Yeah, the PvP experience as a starting pillar, included from the get-go. How do you make the best PvP experience? Well, it starts with the maps. And we knew that this was the perfect time for us to get the LDs and the LAs and the level designers and the level artists in there and make real PvP maps for the first time in the division.
Yeah, there's no nothing here where you're kind of serving two very different types of gameplay, right? So every decision that's made from the level design standpoint is all about what's going to create fair tactical PvP, and it allows us to explore some spaces that aren't inside the rest of the DC space.
Yeah, they're beautiful. We can see my favorite in the background, and just because I said that out loud, I forgot the name of it, but it's beautiful.
Capital
Ruins. Yeah,
Capital
it's
Ruins,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's inspired by a real location in DC, you know, where you can go and there's, you know, pieces of the old White House that were sort of discarded in a park. I don't remember the name of the park offhand, but it's all there and it's surrounded by vegetation, and it was a perfect place for a map.
Yeah, something so distinct, you know, from the rest of the Darkzones, other places you're going to be PvPing.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. So
thanks, bud.
One thing also coming from the first game is one concept that's been a big part of the discussions around the first game is time to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that differ in because fights in the first game can get quite long. So how does that work in the second game? How did you approach that?
Well, as again a high level experience, Keith can go into some of the details, but we wanted players to be able to, I'm going to just say a term we used here, wanted players to be able to outmap each other.
Yeah.
So flanking and, you know, map tactics and team tactics, we wanted it to matter. So often, you know, it was common in the Dark Zone and some of the later skirmish maps to, you know, successfully flank a person, and then because of the mechanics we used, maybe the kill didn't happen as you had anticipated. And now with kill times, how they're currently being set, you can absolutely get the jump on someone and get the kill.
Yeah, there's just because of like the core changes to the feel of combat across the entire Division 2 experience, there were just so many little changes that improved PvP overall. So I think gunplay feels really awesome. It has a real impact to it, and the time to kill damage is just higher in general. A lot of the just healing in general is so reworked from the first game. So there's no instant pop heals. There's no, I was almost dead, but then I popped an instant heal and I'm right back in the fight, right? Healing is always over time, and you really have to get safe and get in cover to successfully pull off those kind of clutch heal moments. And it lets the fights actually resolve. And it feels really good.
Yeah, there's no doubt that PvP, well, of course, you can run up and try to face tank.
Sure.
And this is an RPG, and there are skills.
And there are shotguns. You don't want to get in there.
Yeah. But you better use cover. And it's pretty deadly, and it's very exciting to play. You want to talk about a rush. Every time we play test, there's always some extraordinary moments where somebody pulls off an amazing, like especially in Georgetown. Anyway, I'm sorry going off on a tangent. It feels really good to have kill times that we do and have it be able to mix and mash with, you know, what we consider division, you know, skills and stuff like that. It feels really good.
Yeah, I don't think we would have been able to pull off really this very focused domination experience as well as we have with the first game's mechanics. I think getting in there and actually being in cover and really being scared about people encroaching your space, it just makes it feel so much better.
You know what I want to talk about real quick? Sorry, tangent. I want to talk about the domination points and the passive and active stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go. You should talk. You're smarter than me. Go.
That's not true. Yeah, so, you know, the idea, you know, domination, I think everyone kind of understands how it works. And we have a lot of those tried and true mechanics, right? You get inside the zone, the more people you have inside the zone, you're going to capture faster, you can overtake the other team. But there's another component to capturing objectives in this game, which I think is really interesting. And it's this active capture. So you can, you know, rush into the middle and actually interact on the crate, and you can steal it much faster and kind of overtake it from another team, and even if they were inside of it. So you can try to sneak in, or maybe you've cleared out the other team and you want to capture it really quick before they get back into the fight. And it adds this other layer of decision making that I think really kind of elevates this version of domination.
Yeah, it feels really good to be able to have choice with the domination point and how you want to approach it as a team. You want to sit back, take cover, you know, go passive. You want to cover a man who's going to run in and try to actively capture it. Of course, you're exposed when you're actively capturing.
And you get these hero moments, right? Like A lot of the time, it's 2 teams of 4 clashing on B, and your whole team gets wiped out. You get the final kill, and you have 5 seconds before the other team is going to start edging back in on you.
Yeah.
And you're talking over comms, and you get that capture, and it feels awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing. You're talking about respawns. Something we've changed from the first game is
You're just taking points from my lists here now, Terry.
Sorry, buddy.
No.
Wave
Let's
We're
pretend I asked that
yeah.
question. Let's talk about respawns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go. Wave spawning, go.
Well, just wave spawning in general, we've done a lot of things to the spawn system to try to improve it from the first game. You'll notice the wave spawn makes it, you'll die, and you might have 10, 15 seconds to wait until that next spawn wave comes in, but it lets your group kind of group back up, all come back in together, do a really focused push back into the match. And then we've also done a lot of stuff to, alleviate spawn camping and try to just make it a better overall PvP experience. So all the maps have spawn flipping integrated. So if a team pushes too far into your spawn area, or there's too many kills inside the spawn area, that'll flip, and it kind of just keeps the matches more balanced, gets rid of these really runaway 10 to 2 sort of matches.
Yep.
And speaking of keeping those fights that way, it's no secret that I'm absolutely rubbish at PvP. So when matchmaking into PvP, what can I expect? Like, how will the matchmaking work?
Well, it's a skill-based matchmaking system. I know Keith is probably going to talk about this, but we're a part of the wonderful organization of Ubisoft, and we had the opportunity to really talk to a lot of other teams, how they use matchmaking and the strong parts about it, and we've integrated a lot of those learnings into the Division PvP. So, from a vision or a direction standpoint, I wanted to make sure that players always felt comfortable that they were playing against people near their skill level, and skill-based matchmaking was the obvious choice.
Yeah, and it's very different from what we did before. We've kind of focused it down so that your wins and your losses really matter, and that's going to change who you're playing with. And the goal is, after this game's out in the wild just for a little bit, you'll start getting really, really much more balanced matches.
Yep.
All right, looking forward to actually playing as people who won't kill me in 2 seconds. They probably will anyway.
They still might do that.
Yeah,
they still might do that.
He's better than he's saying. I've played PvP with him.
Yeah, he's
being very modest.
Yeah, you're being so modest. Better.
Yeah, I think I should change that to just being happy that we'll never have to fight you guys. Because
that's right.
It'd be over.
Ella, she's the one.
Ella?
Yeah, she's
the one.
PvP.
Yeah, she's the one. She'll wreck us all. Wreck is the word you use, right? Okay,
Wreck,
so
yeah, you sound cool.
Oh, thank you. I feel much better now. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for all the hard work that you guys are doing on the Darkzone and PvP. We will have you back. We will bring you here to sit at our new fancy table and talk more about all the work you do on the Darkzone and on PvP. It's always fantastic.
Can't wait to talk more about
thank you
it.
so much.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll
awesome.
Say hi to Julian and Matthias for us.
And you have the screen anytime you want it. Anytime you want it.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Later.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this special report about Darkzones and PvP. We're not going away completely. We will have 3-minute break, I believe. And then 5-minute break, I'm being told now. And then me and Hamish are going to jump in front of the computers, mess around a little bit in the Darkzone, maybe try out some PvP. We'll see. And it'll be fun. It'll be awesome. I have a note here somewhere. I really want to, first of all, I want to thank Julia and Matthias, Keith and Terry for joining us here today to talk about the things that they are working on for the second game. But I also want to do a quick shout out to Frederick and Astrid, who are in this room, but also to Bruce, Kim, Jacob, Nikki, Karen, and Rasmus, who are in the building somewhere playing with us as well. So thank you very much for joining us today and helping out and setting the stream up. So thank you all for tuning in. We will be back in a couple of minutes with some more gameplay, and can't wait to see what the future brings. I will see you soon. Bye.